What is happening, guys? Happy Wednesday and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we've actually got a lot of show. We're going to talk about all of the NFL trades because they've all been on offense, and we're going to talk about Dynasty Diamonds in the rough. That's right, guys that you can still get dirt cheap that could have a much more meaningful value in the upcoming seasons. And a guy who's never lost value to me, number one on his shirt, number one in my heart. He is my co-host. You know him better as the man of the hour and the man with the power, Jerry Sinclair, buddy. First time in 2 weeks.
First time in 2 weeks, and I still almost missed it because I was thinking it was 8 o'clock Central Time, not 8 o'clock your time. But I am here. It is wonderful. You look handsome as all hell. Let's get talking, buddy.
Yeah, let's get talking indeed. We actually have our normal 1 hour time slot because we're manwiched in between the man versus machine crew coming up after us. So if you're watching live on YouTube, just stick around and you get to catch that show. And if you're coming over after watching Dear Miss Fantasy with Tara Victoria, welcome to the Dynasty WarZone. So a lot going on at the Player Profiler Network. But Jerry, we'll save all of the catching up and all the fun for our Patreon podcast, which we're going to record as soon as this podcast is done for our patrons over at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. But we're going to do this show a little out of order, okay? We're going to go ahead and do good people, bad tweets. Then we're going to talk about all the trades that went down. Then we're going to talk about Dynasty Diamonds in the rough. Are you good?
I am so good.
Now, normally we do good people, bad tweets, right? And
yes.
And what's the genesis of good people, bad tweets?
People saying dumb stuff.
But they're good people, right?
Well,
but they're most 99.9% of the times they're good people.
Yeah.
Tonight we're dealing with one of those 0.01, those basis points people. This person is literally the skid mark on the undershorts of the fantasy and dynasty community. And it is Dr. Jesse Morse, MD. Now, I don't have the tweet because I went back to get it because when I do the show notes, I go back to the offending tweet and I clip it and I add it to my show sheet so that we can discuss it here on the show. Because normally you want to give attribution. If someone has a bad take, maybe you want to go check them out. Maybe not. So last week, and this went down on October 9th, ironically, the day I was traveling, and Dr. Jesse Morse got into a verbal spat. Well, can we call it a spat?
We can call it a spat.
We'll call it a spat. He got into a spat with Christian Watson's father. Now, this is the classic example of no matter how credentialed you are as a professional. I use that term loosely. He's passed some kind of state medical board, so he's clearly a doctor. He's a dumbass, but he's a doctor. And you can go back and you can look through the history of good people, bad tweets. Jerry, have I ever blatantly called someone a dumbass?
You know, I don't think you have, but maybe.
I wouldn't. I would bet money, but not a sizable amount of money. But these are the kind of dumbasses and the kind of things that content creators, and let's be honest, a lot of people who create content just are experienced fantasy or dynasty gamers. And that's great. If you love the sport as much as Jerry and I love the sport of football and have as many leagues, great. But don't go on Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, and be an asshole. And then when you're directly confronted by the guy's father, telling him how wrong he is, when you have no firsthand knowledge of this kid's injury, Jerry, I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
I will say that I am not a person that is quick with a block button. I started seeing that circle around. So once you started talking about who we were talking about, I knew who it was going to be. I had never seen it because he is actually one of the few human beings that I have blocked. And I don't remember why. I'm pretty sure he was being an asshole to somebody because there's some things that I just can't handle, and it's being an asshole. He's an asshole. He's never been punched in the face before, and it's apparent.
Arrogant.
I'm mouthy, but I've been punched in the face before. Deserve it. You know, learn to treat people a little better once that happens to you. So I had him blocked already, but I did look into that whole situation. And for one thing, you know, you're a doctor. Awesome. Good for you, buddy. You were wrong. You did your analysis by watching a video and you were wrong. And you were arguing with the man's father, who had the direct response from the doctor who saw him and was treating him, and you were arguing about it. Shut up, dude.
You know, I was talking to our old buddy. He doesn't create much content anymore. Still an avid Dynasty gamer, fantasy gamer, just like all of us. G of the show that used to be known as the Aussie Guys. And the Aussie Guys are AJ and G. Wonderful fellas. You know, real life has got in the way and they're no longer really creating content. But last night, I had the good fortune of spending about 45 minutes on the phone with G. And you know, there's a word that Australians and the English use that they're way better with than us in America.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday is exactly right. And if you don't know what see you next Tuesday is, think about it for a second, because I don't even want to go down that road with the Player Profiler YouTube channel, but don't be that guy. If you create content, awesome. But Jerry, I just saw this one and I was like, man, we got to roast this guy. Don't be a dumbass. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good life lesson in general, but also don't do it to somebody who is more credentialed than you also, because that'll just make you look like a bigger fool.
Well, I don't think Christian Watson's father's more credentialed, because I'm sure he's not.
No, but he
has more information.
Yes,
all of this is incomplete information, and you're making an educated guess. And someone with more information is probably right. And just, have you ever seen Ted Lasso?
Yeah,
the classic
fantastic show.
And if you've never seen it and you're on YouTube, it's worth going to check out. Don't be judgmental. Be curious. Just search Ted Lasso. Be curious. It's about a 2.5-minute video. It is a life lesson. Maybe before I block him, because I don't block anybody, I mute people. Maybe I'll send this to Dr. Jesse Morris, because ask questions and be curious. And this is a lesson that I teach my son and the other 15 kids that I coach in baseball. One of the number one rules of life is don't be a dick. So Dr. Jesse Morris, please don't be a dick. But Jerry, we're going to give him a little Dana White. We're going to hear from the Podfather. And then we're going to talk about all of the trades. We already have questions in the live chat about, hey, what would you give for Davante Adams? Jesse and I are going to break down Davante Adams, Amari Cooper, Cam Akers, and we'll talk about trades and the purpose of, hey, what else could happen next? But first, as always, our buddy Dana White.
How fucking stupid you have to be to even think something like that, let alone say it publicly and act like you're fucking serious.
And then, of course, our good friend, the Podfather.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set, this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
You know, I almost did like visual art, if you will. I don't have a $5 bill, but I was going to hold it up for the camera for the people on YouTube. It's $5. Literally, if you're listening to the audio podcast, there's links to all of these things in the podcast description. You just click on the link, you get the Dynasty Dominator, you click on the link, you join the patron. It's all right there. It's right there for you in the show notes. And I'll make sure that our editor and producer puts that in the YouTube show notes as well. Now, Jesse, sorry, Jerry, Jerry. Maybe I thought you were making meth. I damn sure don't think you were the doctor we were just referring to, like Jesse Pinkman. But a lot of trades went down on Tuesday in the NFL. And I think the first one, and we'll start with what was the most obvious one, was Davante Adams to the New York Jets. And I'm sure you saw the GIFs on X last week of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The minute Davante Adams gets to the Jets, his hamstring. Perfect. The Kevin Nash one's another one going around out there as well, where he's in the wheelchair with a blanket over his leg. And then the minute something happens, he pulls the blanket off and he's good to go. Ironically, Davante Adams, full participant in practice today on Wednesday. But when you saw it, you knew it happened. What were your thoughts on the Davante Adams trade? Shocked? Is it help? Is it hurt?
I mean, you can't be shocked by it. I mean, the writing was on the wall with his boo-boo Aaron Rodgers in New York City over there. Does it do anything for me? I don't know. I mean, he's not irrelevant. He's a good player. It's good for the Jets. It's good for Aaron Rodgers if you've been holding on to old dusty knees Aaron Rodgers as your superflex QB. Does it kill Garrett Wilson? I don't think so. I don't think it kills him, but it hurts him. It hurts him for sure.
So total dick move on my part, and I super apologize in advance, because someone says something stupid, we're going to roast them with good people, bad tweets. But when someone says something good, I like to give attribution there as well. And I don't remember who tweeted it. I saw it on Tuesday. And whoever this person was, if it was you, comment in the chat below. But it said, there's some spreadsheet nerd in their mom's basement that's trying to convince you that Davante Adams signing or getting traded to the New York Jets is good for Garrett Wilson.
No.
And I thought that was absolutely hilarious, because someone's going to, rationalize it, overthink it. This is horrible news for Garrett Wilson. He was having a good season. He was hogging all of the targets. And Theo in the chat, so Theo did not say that. It was Austin Martin. Austin is a super high stakes FFPC player. I've followed him for a long time. So thank you to Theo in the chat. Yeah, it was Austin Martin who said that. And I think he's spot on. Garrett Wilson's in trouble, Jerry. Now, it's not going to impact his dynasty value, but dude, it's going to hurt you if you had Garrett Wilson on a contender.
100%. Listen, Garrett Wilson is going to be what he has been for the first several years of his career. He was on a trajectory that was starting to get better. Like, he was going to take that tier up in the last several weeks, but Davante Adams and his boo-boo Aaron Rodgers are going to be there. And I mean, hell, if anything, anybody that was in a dire straits and was starting Alan Lazard and was happy that they were starting Alan Lazard, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. My former Ames, Iowa Cyclone buddy is going to be absolutely irrelevant, though. Garrett Wilson's fine. He's never going to be this is going to prevent him from being any better than anything he ever has been.
That is very well said. Because he was on, I mean, you look at the number of targets he'd received over the last couple of games, especially.
Well, a couple weeks ago, he had the silly targets, but
yes, but that's what you want. That's why you got excited when Aaron Rodgers came to New York. That's why it's like, finally, not only is he going to get the targets, but he's going to get them from a good quarterback. And I pulled up some Davante Adams stats as you were talking. During the last season, which would have been 2022. Oh, actually, I apologize. It should have been 2021. I've got to go back one more season. I was going to pull up his targets because that was the last year he was with the Green Bay Packers. He played 16 games, didn't play all 17, played 16 games, got 169 targets, Jerry.
Yeah.
And
pretty good.
Who do you and Aaron Rodgers has already showed you who he trusts. So this is bad news for Garrett Wilson. I want to answer a question from the chat, and I'll give that I'll actually post the question. But what would you give? Because you should only be trying to acquire Davante Adams in a dynasty league right now. What are you willing to give up in a dynasty league for Davante Adams?
To get Davante Adams? I mean,
you're a contender. You're going to finish somewhere between, like, let's say first and fourth.
I'm not giving a first. Because I still got to worry about Garrett Wilson. Like I said, I do think that it hurts Garrett Wilson, but I also think Garrett Wilson is going to hurt Davante Adams. I think they have two very good wide receivers that they can play and they are going to use. And Aaron Rodgers is just going to get the ball to whoever he wants to get the ball to in that specific situation. I don't think he's going to be force feeding anybody. So is it going to be a second? Sure. Is somebody going to trade me Davante Adams for a second? I doubt it, which means he's going to be relatively tough to acquire, I would guess.
I have not gotten a response back yet. I'm in a content creators league. A lot of content creators you would know. And I'm a contender, and I'm kind of like, I'm not to say unexpected, but I knew I had the potential. And, I've got guys like Derrick Henry on this team. But I've also got some young guys. I got Justin Jefferson, Breece Hall, Sam Darnold playing out of his mind is really helping this team. But I need some depth. And what I do when I need some depth is I go to the bottom 3 teams in my league and I start looking over their roster. And I treat it like grocery shopping. I could use that here, that there. And on one of these bottom 3 teams in this league, he had Davante Adams, Austin Eckler, who's playing not like peak Austin Eckler, but he's playing well. He's involved in the passing game. Very, very, very useful as like an RB2 flex type. We have buys and injuries. So this person should probably finish between 3rd from the bottom, 4th from the bottom. So like their second round pick would be like the 204. Mm-hmm. And I currently am like the 3rd best team in the league. So this was my offer to get Davante Adams and Austin Eckler. I offered my first and this person's a Seahawks fan and it's a very tight end premium league. So I offered my first and AJ Barner because this person needs tight end help. And in return, I get Davante Adams, Austin Eckler, and their 2026 second. So
I think they're going to tell you to go to hell, but I think
they have not responded. Well, they either haven't seen it or they're ignoring it. But that's the kind of offer. Like I wanted to go like my first for Adams in a second. Here's the thing. I'm giving you top of the market value for both these guys.
Which 100%. I think you may find a counter where they bump that second down to a 3rd or something. Then are you still going to pull the trigger? You get the 2 old guys that you want. You're giving up a late first. You want to do that?
I would give him my contender second for Davante Adams. And if you can get better someone else, brother, I'm here for it. I'm rooting for you. Because here's the thing. What's that classic FAFO? Fuck around. You find out. Play hardball. You're going to wind up on a team where you were, I don't know, finished in the bottom 3, bottom 4 of a league. And you're going to look up in January or February, and you're still going to have Davante Adams on your roster as opposed to that second round pick you could have had. And here's going to be your response. Fuck. I could have had a second, and now I'm stuck with 33 or 32-year-old Davante Adams. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. Don't be a hog. I'm just saying. I think that's a fair offer. If you're offered a contender's second, I think that's fair.
I mean, I think it's relatively fair. It just depends on if they view themselves the same way that you are viewing them also.
And so, if you are a non-contender, because you want to keep, if you're like rebuilding or just started to rebuild and you have him, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to take your 2026 second. Okay. Remember, a year from now, that pick will come back to you multiple times over in other deals. Your 2026 second, Davante Adams, and go offer that for a contender's first for 2025. And they're like, it's like, hey, you want to win this league or not? You need a wide receiver. Maybe they're the Tyreek Hill GM and they're struggling because Tua's not playing and Hill's not putting up points. Maybe it's the Puka Nacua GM who thought they were going to contend this year and they need points. That's how you sell it, because the best thing for you, if you make that happen now, guess what? If that team ends up tanking, you could wind up getting the 107, the 106, something in that nice middle, and in Superflex tight end premium, that could be a really, really nice get for Davante Adams. So that's my spiel on Davante Adams. Any winners on the Raiders besides Theo? Theo's dominating the chat right now. besides Theo's guy, Brock Bowers?
No, just Brock Bowers, but love that for him. And
Yeah,
it'll make him suck worse. I mean, granted, he wasn't playing anyway, so we can get an earlier pick. We can get back in there that's worth a damn.
I would probably be more in on a guy like Jacoby Myers if they had any kind of decent QB play. You know, Jacoby Myers is not
have
bad
any decent anything,
dude,
right? Except for Brock Bowers and Max Crosby.
I think it's a dead heat between Jimmy Haslam and Mark Davis as the worst owners in the NFL.
But Mark Davis has the bad haircut, so he gets the nod.
Speaking of the haircut, have you seen the photoshopping out there where they photoshopped Tom Brady with Mark Davis's haircut?
No, it's got to be
glorious.
It's
glorious. Speaking of glorious, I have a couple of rosters where I had a guy named Amari Cooper, and you still have to start him because he's Amari Cooper. You got to put him in like that third flex spot. You're just praying for a miracle with Amari Cooper, and every week it's like maybe this is the week he'll get. And then to go from what is statistically the worst quarterback, I heard this today on a podcast, and to go from a guy who is playing worse than 2009 Jamarcus Russell. How bad is Deshaun Watson playing? Worse than 2009 from an EPA standpoint, Jamarcus Russell. It don't get much worse than that, Jer.
No, it does not.
But
nor should it.
Now he goes to arguably one of the top two quarterbacks in the entire league. And I know you like Keon Coleman. I like Khalil Shakur. Theo likes Dalton Kincaid. We understand that. But, man, this could not have been a better spot for him. And in a league that we're in, pretty high dollar entry fee league, I already had Josh Allen, and we start 12 in this league. And I had Amari Cooper on this roster, and now I have a Josh Allen, Amari Cooper stack. I loved it. I thought it was a win for everybody involved. I don't see any losers in this equation. Do you see any losers in the Amari Cooper deal?
Deshaun Watson, if you wanted to go from 13 points to 9 points, he lost out a little bit. No, here's the thing. I have Amari Cooper on my oldest redraft league, so I have watched quite a bit of Cleveland play football this year. Horrendous, awful, putrid, dreadful decision on my part. It's frustrating because if you have watched that situation at all, Amari Cooper's getting tons of targets, or at least he was. And it was some of the worst passes you've ever seen, some of the dumbest dipshittery that has ever expressed itself on a football field. And now I get him with Josh Allen. So Jerry is sitting back. Jerry is sitting pretty. No, it's wonderful. It was clear that Josh Allen needed somebody like Amari Cooper to come in. Listen, Keon Coleman, he'll probably be fine in the future, but he's not ready. He's not ready to be the number one focus on an offense with Josh Allen. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Don't hear what I'm not saying, but Keon Coleman now has the same problem Rome Odunze has. And I like Rome Odunze. I had him in that same tier with Neighbors and with Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's got a target competition problem. DJ Moore dominating target competition. You know, we said it. It's like how long before Cole Kmet starts getting more evolved, and Cole Kmet's been smashing the last couple of weeks. And now you bring Keenan Allen back. I got news for you. It ain't getting any better for Rome Odunze in 2024. He'll be someone we talk about in the offseason as a buy low, as will be a guy like Keon Coleman, because you know Amari Cooper's a mercenary. He's only like 30 or 31, but he's the kind of guy with – my only thing about Amari Cooper is as you get deeper in the playoffs and cold weather, he can wither up a little bit when it gets a little bit chilly outside. He's a warm weather fella, but I loved it. And as far as the Browns, there's no winners. I wouldn't start.
Well, Nick Chubb's coming back, and he's going to have to rush it 35 times on 0 kneecaps.
Well,
so
I was referring
maybe
to
that's a
catchers.
win. I know. No, that's bad. It's bad. It's bad. That whole situation is bad. They need to get the hell out from under the Deshaun Watson situation. If only they had somebody like a Baker Mayfield leading their offense, they would be in a much better situation. Idiots.
You know, I had this conversation with Dynasty Rich because he's a huge, if you ever listen to the Dynasty Nerds, you know Rich is a huge Cleveland Browns fan. And I was like, you can't be both a good quarterback and a Cleveland Brown. And he was like, well, what about Baker Mayfield? I'm like, well, he's not a Cleveland Brown. He was a bad quarterback as a Cleveland Brown. He's doing really well. It's kind of like the Jets to a degree, but he's doing really well in Tampa Bay. Deshaun Watson was great in Houston, kicking ass and taking names, was a good quarterback. Now he's in Cleveland. He's a bad quarterback. There's something about the land of Cleve that does not set well for quarterbacks. And it's the factory of sadness. I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't start Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. If David Njoku gets healthy for more than 2 games in a row, I obviously think that he's the kind of guy that you wouldn't mind starting at tight end, because tight end's a landmine field of its own. So, but yeah, I saw this trade, Jerry, and I knew you were going to love it as much as I did, because we were, I can't say always, but for the last several years, and like last year, what was it, like week 16? He blew up and had like 48 points. He won me more than $500 in one league because I was going to lose that matchup. He got me into second place because he absolutely smashed in that spot. So I've got a warm spot in my heart for Amari Cooper.
No, he's been around for what seems like forever. He was an elite prospect coming out of Alabama. He's been on the tongues of dynasty players for damn near a decade. So he's gotten to the point where he's no longer a new hotness and everyone's got name fatigue from him. But he's always been pretty damn productive and pretty damn reliable. So he was never sexy, but he was always a value just because he was productive, but also people didn't love him. Now he's in a situation where he can continue that trend. I am absolutely thrilled that he is there. I'm also happy for Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen is an expensive asset that I don't have tons of across all of my leagues, but in the ones that I do, I am thrilled that somebody with Amari Cooper's pedigree is there.
Well, we're going to play Who's Older. We're going to play a little quick game of Who's Older. This is what happens when you're a subscriber over at Player Profiler. When you go to the Dynasty ranks, they have a column right there with their age down to the decimal point. Okay? Who is older, Amari Cooper or Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill is older by just a couple of months. Tyreek Hill had a birthday, I think it's May, and Amari Cooper, June. Jerry, that's crazy. Younger, Amari Cooper or Mike Evans, same draft class?
Mike Evans is older.
Mike Evans is older. Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper?
Diggs.
Diggs, not by a lot. Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper? Cooper Kupp has been in the league 2 full seasons less than Amari Cooper.
I mean, I was going to say Cooper Kupp, but now I'm starting to second guess myself.
Cooper Kupp's older. He's 31.3. Amari Cooper, 30.3. So Terry McLaurin, 29 versus 30. Amari Cooper's the kind of guy that could stick around in Buffalo for a couple of seasons, and his name value is not going to carry. Like if you offer him, like if you offer a contender second for Amari Cooper right now, you can easily ask for that person's third back and not feel a damn bit guilty about it at all. Brother, I'm doing you a favor. You know, just remind him there's a reason why Amari Cooper's on his 9th team or whatever it is. He's not exactly a hot asset, and tell him you don't want to be the GM not winning who looks up in January and been like, damn, I could have had a second round pick as opposed to Amari Cooper. You'd be like, oh yeah, that wasn't a bad trade at all. So there was one other trade, a little bit smaller. That was the Texans sending Cam Akers to the Minnesota Vikings. I'll tell you my takeaway on that. It doesn't really help in perspective. Cam Akers a little bit. You know, because if you have Aaron Jones, you need Cam Akers. Why? Because Aaron Jones was hurt going into the bye, and you don't trade for Cam Akers if Aaron Jones is ready to come back after the bye. And it also, if you have Joe Mixon, it gives you some good news, because if you're the Houston Texans and you see how much better that offense is with the running game, i.e. Joe Mixon, you saw it this past week, then you wouldn't have traded Cam Akers if you didn't feel solid about the injury return of both Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon. So from a Houston standpoint, that's what I took away from it. I mean, maybe Cam Akers has a couple of good games here or there, but I don't think there's a lot of dynasty value in this trade.
No, not really. I think the biggest thing that you said is you don't trade for somebody if they're healthy, and you don't trade someone away if they're not healthy. As far as the dynasty value of Cam Akers, I haven't cared about Cam Akers since about 2020, and I didn't even like him that much back then. So wherever he goes, does nothing for me.
I mean, I don't know. He's the kind of guy that you can probably get a game out of. It's a great opportunity to take the information that Jerry and I just laid upon you and go to your league and find out who has Aaron Jones and say, hey, dummy, why do you think they just traded for Cam Akers? Probably because Aaron Jones is banged up. And Aaron Jones has probably gotten this GM off to a pretty good start because Aaron Jones has played well the first 5 weeks of the season. Obviously was on bye last week. So I think that's how you sell. You send Cam Akers and a third for any second, and you run like a thief in the night. And we're going to talk more about trades when we record our Patreon podcast, because we're going to talk about how to trade first. When am I going to trade? When am I trading first? And I'm going to share with Jerry and the patrons a great conversation I had with G about trading first and how we're going to handle that going forward. But maybe, just maybe, Jerry, your dynasty teams are in the toilet. They're the drizzling shits right now. Maybe that work redraft league you got into, Debbie in accounting, she took Saquon Barkley, and she had the turn, and she took Barkley and Derrick Henry, and now she's bulldozing the league. Your dynasty teams suck. Your redraft teams suck, but you still want to play some fantasy football somewhere. Maybe you want to check out our friends at Underdog.
Hey, I know it's a popular statistic to cite, these underdog pick'ems, the vast majority of people go more than on any given player. Yeah, close to 80% of people, but that's because it's easier to find the shootouts than it is to find the dud games every Sunday afternoon. Like we knew week 5, Ravens-Bengals was going to be a shootout. And there goes Lamar Jackson for 4 touchdowns. There goes Joe Burrow for 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry gets there. Zay Flowers is over 100 yards. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both got there, as well as Chase Brown. Both Chases got there. You go more than. You 100x your payout on Underdog with their Pick 6 contest. But then you look at Dolphins Patriots, that's going down the toilet, right? Too bad Ramondre Stevenson had 18 fantasy points. But you improve your chances at positive returns when you correlate with these Underdog pick'ems. Use promo code Underworld. This is the biggest bonus Underdog has ever given out, up to $125. Promo code is Underworld. Put in $250, you get $125. Now go start picking.
Yeah, just go out and start doing some pick'ems. I like the smaller pick'ems. Parlays are hard to hit. You got to get like 3 pieces to lock up, but that's our sponsor, Underdog, Jerry. Let's talk about Dynasty Diamonds in the rough. So when I sent you this show sheet and I said, hey, this is going to be our topic, what did you think when I said Dynasty Diamonds in the rough?
Just somebody that maybe is under the radar. Maybe they're not, but they're not, they've been around, but they haven't blossomed in the way that we all needed them to lead us towards our glory. Somebody that's cheap, but somebody that can help us.
Yeah, and someone that's going to accrue value because they're flashing potential right now, and someone that we think we want to get ahead of, if that makes sense. And what's funny is I sent Jerry a list of names, and 2 of the names on the list were Theo Johnson, tight end for the Giants, and Tyron Tracy, also of the Giants. And then Jerry came back and said, well, I'd like to talk about Wan'Dale Robinson of the Giants. I will say this, and we obviously not going to talk Daniel Jones or Malik Neighbors. I like Brian Daboll as a coach and as a play caller. I can tell you that when they get a quarterback upgrade in New York, you're going to wish you had more of these guys, because with the money if they get rid of Jones, it's going to be a big dead cap hit. They've paid Andrew Thomas. They've paid Brian Burns. Thibodeau will want to be paid. So they'll need cheap guys, and rookies like Theo Johnson and Tyron Tracy are going to be good. And second year guys like Wan'Dale Robinson are good, Jerry. So what made you pick Wan'Dale Robinson, and what are your thoughts on this Giants defense? Or excuse me, offense.
He just creates separation, Randy. He's exactly the kind of person that is starting to thrive in the NFL and has over the last 3 or 4 years. For the longest time, right? Big body, jump ball, high point the ball. That's not what wins. Look at what Malik Neighbors is doing versus how Marvin Harrison Jr. is starting to struggle a little bit, right? Creating separation, giving the opportunity for your quarterback to get the ball, especially when the motherfucker is Daniel Jones, and you need to create all the separation that you absolutely can. Wan'Dale Robinson is doing that, and Daniel Jones is peppering him. His targets so far this season, 12, 4, 8, 14, 9, and 11. Like that's not like diamond in the rough targets. That's holy shit. That's a lot of targets for anybody to get. And while he's gotten a couple touchdowns and he's gotten some decent yardage, it hasn't sort of matched up exactly. But this is a dude that's 23 years old, getting targeted a bunch in an offense that is clearly going after guys like him for this exact reason. And we talk about like Tyrone Tracy, right? He's fine. He's not a world beater. He's not the focus of your offense. It's in that short intermediate passing game where guys like Malik Neighbors can feast and Wan'Dale Robinson can feast. He's cheap. He was a second round rookie pick when he came out. And if there's one thing that people just will not hold on to and hold their value, it's second round rookie picks. First round rookie picks, they hold value for some of them for far too damn long. I mean, Cam Akers was still worth a shitload.
DeAndre Swift, although he's played better the last 2 years.
He's been good lately. But yes, exactly. First round rookie picks always hold value. Second round rookie picks fall off the wagon immediately. It's like they're always the sexiest players that everyone wants to talk about, and then as soon as the season starts and they're not productive, nobody cares. Insert Wan'Dale Robinson. 100% a guy I am throwing tons of seconds at, doing what I can. Hell, even some of these like wide receivers that are rookies this year who went in the second round, here, take them.
Yeah, I mean that I agree. And he's too expensive to get now. He does not qualify as a diamond in the rough, but as the resident Colts fan on this podcast, I was screaming from the mountaintops, both here on this podcast and on Twitter, go get Josh Downs. I know Michael Pittman's there. I understand he's a target hog the same way that Malik Neighbors is going to be a target hog. But in games with Malik Neighbors, this guy had a 12-target game, an 8-target game, and a 14-target game with Malik Neighbors in the lineup. And then the last 2 weeks without him, he had 9 and 11. So this is a guy who's got 58 targets in 6 games. I mean, if I told you, hey, I got a wide receiver, I'm going to do the no-name thing. I got a wide receiver getting almost 10 targets a game. Are you interested? What would your answer be?
Hell yeah.
Well, who wouldn't? Dynasty's all about volume and value. And that's the volume.
If Chris Olave had this kind of target share, everybody would build a statue of him right outside their house. Full genitalia, just rocking and rolling. They would get excited. You know, people get excited for Olave. Don't look at me like that. You know that.
Well, I'm gonna shift to an error that I made. As you know, Jerry talks about genitalia, and I apologize. Wan'Dale Robinson actually going into year 3. He's only played he's only played 21 games after his first 2 years. So I was like, I don't remember seeing him that much. So we played 21 games. That's almost like playing a full season. So I think this is a great one. I like Theo Johnson because we know tight ends take a while, and we're actually going to tight ends kind of dominate this list, to be quite honest. But I think Theo Johnson will wind up being a nice tight end in the league. He could wind up, I'll just be very transparent, in tight end premium leagues and must start 2 tight end leagues. He's the kind of guy that you want to get on your roster, because if he blossoms in this offense, and he's not going to get Travis Kelce targets, he's not going to get Evan Ingram targets, but if he can get 6 meaningful targets and catch 4 for 50 yards, you know what? That's what Pat Fryermuth has been doing all year, and he's like the tight end 6 on the season. Tight end is such a barren wasteland, especially in start 2 tight end formats. He's just a guy that I really like. I really liked him coming out. His name's Theo. I didn't see what was the miss with Theo Johnson, and then Tyron Tracy. I do think Devin Singletary will come back and take some of that job away, but again, is Devin Singletary going to be the starting running back next year? Probably not. Like, I'm 94.7% sure that he will not be in New York next year. I'm pretty sure he's on a 1-year deal. And if you can get Tyron Tracy now, and maybe you got to give a second. This guy was going in the 3rd, the 4th of Superflex leagues. I mean, he was not expensive. And if you think that you can get a good running back on an emerging offense, because think about this, you plug in Shador Sanders, or I don't love Carson Beck, but Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers, anyone not named Daniel Jones. Maybe they trade for J.J. McCarthy if my boy Sam Darnold, continues to play real well, gets Minnesota, gets a playoff win. The Giants tried to trade up to get both Drake May and J.J. McCarthy. Maybe the Giants are a player, but you put a new quarterback in there, a better quarterback in there, you're going to wish you had more Giants, Jerry.
I agree. And listen, I like Theo Johnson. Number 1 athletic profile on Player Profiler. I mean, dude's an animal. Dude was real good at Penn State. I like him. I got quite a few shares of him. I'm with you. No, I don't like talk. First and foremost, I don't like talking about the Giants this much. Feels dirty. Feels like when you throw up in your mouth and then you have to swallow it back a little bit. It's a little bit what we got going on right here. But intriguing young talent for sure.
Yeah, and the metrics that matter, Theo, there's this great reference. It's called Player Profiler. You can check it out. Theo Johnson is in the 98th percentile in speed, the 96th percentile in burst, and 98th percentile in catch radius, wingspan, whatever you want to call it. A lot to like about the guy, and as we've said 100 times about tight ends, they take a little while to get going. He's going to be an absolute steal. He was my guy, but a guy that you wanted on the list was Kamani Vidal. I hope I pronounced that. By the way, a little side note, when I put him in the show sheet, because I was using my iPhone, it changed Kamani to Konami, like the Konami code, like the video game. I was like, that's pretty funny, because it's a fantasy football show, and the Konami code being associated with fantasy football. Anyhow.
Listen, finally got some play, right? Everybody's excited because he's running back into Jim Harbaugh offense, and we hadn't seen him up to this point. Older guy, been around college football a long time. I think he's 23. Highly productive at Troy. Finally gets some play in the NFL, and he scores a touchdown in his first game, and he got it receiving. What more do you want? Like, he's big size-wise, not very tall, but he's got a big guy, so he can handle the pressure of running the ball. He can handle the beating that it takes. Plus, he's a pass catcher, gets a touchdown in his first game. Listen, he was an intriguing person in the rookie drafts, and he probably went in the 3rd, 4th round of most of your Superflex rookie drafts. I like him. And listen, J.K. Dobbins, he has done great. Randy, have you seen J.K. Dobbins play in the NFL for long stretches of time?
While a good football player, not notorious for his durability.
No.
And look at the volume he's getting. I mean, how long can he withstand that?
No. And so if at any point someone who has had catastrophic injuries throughout their career tends to miss any play, insert Kimani Vidal. And if he ends up getting some play, is successful with it, then you have Jim Harbaugh's starting running back. And I don't want to tell secrets outside of class, but that's what you want if you want to be successful, because Jim Harbaugh runs the ball.
And he's a 23-year-old rookie, which at the running back position, you're looking to get a guy that can give you 3 years.
Yep.
If you get more than 3 years out of any running back that you drafted, usable years, let me rephrase that. You get more than 3 usable years out of any running back that you draft as a rookie, you've done something in the modern NFL. And dude, spot on. And like, I always go back to the money. Maybe I'm greedy. Maybe I have I have
You are.
I have deeper rooted issues as it relates to money, but I always go back to that. You're paying Justin Herbert a truckload of money. Christian Slater is going to need to be re-upped. Joey Bosa makes a bag. You start looking around, it's like, where can a team like the Chargers, I think you'll start seeing, I don't say because you see some of the opposite, but I think he's going to have a nice back end of the season. You are gambling because Harbaugh will not be afraid to draft a running back if there's someone coming out that he likes. He's going to he's probably going to get off-season competition, but definitely a guy that I like. All right, let me go to one of my guys. He was one of my guys, and you stole him.
Good.
I'm going to say you stole him, you son of a bitch, Eric All. I'll tell you after you tell me, why did you put Eric All on this list?
For one, he's a rookie, and he has been not overly productive, but pretty productive. I mean, we're talking as soon as his second game in the league, we start seeing 4 receptions, 4 receptions, 4 receptions. I mean, he's getting targeted. It's an offense that should be okay. It'll be better when Taylor's gone. I said it. I mean, and there's a rule around here. Now, I know he started his career at Michigan, but if you wore an Iowa Hawkeyes jersey and you are a tight end for Kirk Ferentz, you are on my team. I don't care. Even if it was only
odds. You're just going to play the percentages.
There's a lot of people that'll tell you don't scout the helmet and don't do all that. There is one exception to that rule, and it's if you played in Iowa City for Kirk Ferentz and you play tight end, you go on my team. No exceptions.
Unless your name's Noah Fant, you're breaking.
But even he's fine. He is fine.
He's been usable. Not a huge athletic profile on Eric All because he came into the season banged up. But he is a guy that I think you could absolutely throw on your roster. And I was pulling up my boy Mike Gesicki because Mike Gesicki's had a couple of good games, but Mike Gesicki's on a 1-year deal. And as much as I like him, it's not exactly like he's setting the world on fire. He has not, in fact, become the Bengals version of Evan Ingram, where Evan Ingram had a career resurgence in Jacksonville. That's not been the case. But if you look at it, he's had 21 targets in 5 games, 4 targets a game. So if all those go away and they go to Eric All, and we know, because again, back to the money, follow the money, they can't afford to pay T. Higgins. Now I want to talk about Jermaine Burton, his teammate from Alabama. He's a guy that I have some interest in. He seems to have a bit of that knucklehead factor, but with the exception of the Giants, I guess, but so far, what do all these guys have in common? Kamani Vidal, Jermaine Burton. Again, the Giants notwithstanding, they're tied to good quarterbacks and good coaches. I don't really love Zach Taylor, but we're not out here chasing Tennessee Titans. All right, just be very, very, very honest. You don't see a lot of Titans talk on this list. So that's what you're chasing. And again, this is diamonds in the rough. You're looking to get ahead of being ahead. So that's why I had Eric on there, all on there. Next guy, Ben Sinnott. And everyone's calling him the next Trey McBride. Do you know why, Jerry?
Why is that?
Well, he's being blocked currently by a guy named Zach Ertz. Do you know? Oh, by the way, he's also attached to a mobile quarterback coached by Cliff Kingsbury. Does that remind you of anybody who's broken out of the title?
Like Trey.
Sounds a little bit like Trey McBride, and I think that's the connect the dots easy answer. But that's what we're talking about. No one's talking about Ben Sinnott right now. This is the time where, like, if you're a contender, even you can afford to go throw a third at Ben Sinnott. Why not? Most of your league mates probably don't live on X or listen to a lot of podcasts. So you're the smart one. You're listening to the Dynasty WarZone. You're listening to Player Profiler. You're ahead of the game. But these are the kind of guys that you stack up, Jerry. I mean, we loved him in the offseason.
True.
I love him now. That's why I put him on the list. It would be nice to say he's the next Trey McBride, but we tried that this year, well, before the draft, with a guy named Michael Mayer. Not so fast, my friend, because they drafted Brock Bowers. But I think you get where I'm going. Get these tight ends while they're young and stash them on the back end of your roster, because you can still leave them on your taxi for 2 years.
100%. Listen, it sucks that we're even having this conversation about this man right now. Because, like you said, in the offseason, it was full steam ahead on the Ben Sinnott train, for sure. But unfortunately, we have seen no targets. We've seen no receptions. We've seen a whole bunch of doo-doo and a whole bunch of old man grandpappy Zach Ertz, which is fine. Because I don't want my man to go out there, get lost, do that thing, and tight ends take a little bit of time to get the lay of the land, so to speak, in the NFL. But the biggest and best news that comes with Ben Sinnott not doing anything for you in the first 6 weeks is Jaden Daniels has not been doing nothing for the last 6 weeks. That dude has pulled his meat out and set it on the league. And he is ready to continue to do that and to thrive. That dude looks good. And as a person with a lot of Terry McLaurin, I very highly appreciate everything that he is doing for me, because I was a bit of a hater in the offseason, and I do not have a lot of Jaden Daniels. I think I have one share across almost 30 leagues. So
yeah, I was also and I'm not even going to wait to the end of the season to own my shit take, because I too was not on Jaden Daniels. But again, I think that's why we've been successful as long as we have doing this show, because we don't dig in. If you screwed up, say you screwed up and move on, apologize, and try to help fix it going forward. And again, Ben Sinnott going to be tied to a very good offense and to a very good offensive coordinator. And you mentioned my guy, and if anything, I owe Jaden Daniels the apology just for making Terry McLaurin. He's currently a wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 12, if I remember correctly. So I'll not only will I apologize, I'll try to get like the address for the Commanders, and I'll send like a nice edible arrangement as a thank you to Jaden Daniels for helping my man, fellow Indiana resident, Terry McLaurin. And then the last guy I wanted to throw in here real quick before we wrap up, because I want to get us out of the way of the Man versus Machine podcast coming up right behind us on YouTube. But Braylon Allen had some buzz early in the season. I don't care. Braylon Allen is the guy. Do you remember Michael Turner?
Yeah, of course.
Michael the Burner Turner. He was in LA behind a really good running back. Maybe you've heard of him. His name was LaDainian Tomlinson. And then he finally got onto a different team. And when he got to that different team, he absolutely wrecked him for a couple of years. I don't care if once I acquire Braylon Allen, I don't care if he has to sit there until either they don't re-sign Breece Hall and he goes somewhere else, or he gets past his rookie deal and gets to go somewhere else. 25-man dynasty rosters, I'm stashing all the Braylon Allen, because I believe in like 4 years when his contract's up, I think he'll be like 24, Jerry.
Yeah, he's 20 right now, which is absolutely wild. Nope. Dude has been productive. Dude has been good. Dude looks good. He's got the big boogeyman ahead of him, though. And he's not just going to surpass the big boogeyman in Breece Hall. And that sucks. But if you want to play the long term, you want to play the long game, you want to stash him, I think he's good. And I think he's going to remain good. And if you can wait it out, I mean, that's a tough ask for dynasty players, because Randy, I know we always say, this is Dynasty. You get everybody forever. I'm going to have this player for 10 years. Shut up. We change our minds every other week. No,
you know,
you could definitely hold on to this, dude.
There's a reason why so many dynasty rosters, looked at the back end of their roster and go, oh, I stumbled into a Kareem Hunt share. Oh, I stumbled into this guy. You know why? Because we have 25-man rosters. Now, I get if you play in the FFPC, it's a little bit different. This might be more of a sleeper, my fantasy league type play. But yes, to your point, per player profiler, he's 20.7. You could be getting this is where I'll compare him to like a car. When he becomes a free agent and going onto that new team after his 4th year, and He's that sports car that you can get with real low miles. He's not been overused.
Just the old guy in the neighborhood's been driving him around.
This guy's speed score is in the 95th percentile. His BMI is 31. He is 6'1", 235 pounds. You know, I will hold on to this type of a lottery ticket for many years because I'm only hoping that he, you know, goes to the kind of spot that will like give him at least a prominent role. Oh, and here's the thing. You're not getting him as cheap as you are now if you wait until Breece Hall gets injured. If you have Breece Hall and you owe it to yourself to go now that he's cooled off, because, you know, he had a couple of good games there early in the season, but like all the love and everybody's talking about Rodgers and Adams and Wilson and Breece Hall. And I even saw Tyler Conklin in the chat tonight. No one's talking about Braylon Allen right now. Now is the time to either get him for your roster as a hold long-term, like a savings bond. And I'll answer this one because he's another guy that I like. You know, Sean Tucker's fine. Sean Tucker's absolutely fine. These are the kind of guys. We got to go record another podcast, and we have to get out of the way of another podcast that's getting ready to start. But I will leave the people on this, and then I will allow you to leave the people with whatever message you have for them. But this is why, especially in rounds 2 through 5 or 4, however many rounds your rookie draft has, draft running backs and trade for wide receivers. You're just going to be so much happier that you do. Now, I get it's in the first round and you got to chase draft capital. You got to chase, you know, I get with the 110, you got to chase Xavier Worthy or Keon Coleman because they're attached to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. But, man, in rounds 2 through 5, just take the running back on the best offense with the thinnest barrier to playing time. And you'll like Tyron Tracy, great example.
Braylon Allen, Kamani
Vidal. You see where this is going, guys. You see where this is going. There is so, and then you can flip these guys. You can acquire these guys. There's so many things that you can do that you can do to make your roster better. And we're gonna go do another podcast, dude. It was great catching up with you. It's been 2 weeks as far as 2 shows without you, but it's been 20 linear days. It's been 20 linear days since I've actually got to hang out with my man, Jerry. Dude, it's good to have you back. What is your parting words of wisdom for these people?
Nope. Just make moves. Don't be stagnant. Use new zing when everybody else is zagging around.
You zig where they're zagging.
Yeah. Like you do not want to just make your moves based on news cycles. Because that's when prices have shifted in the exact opposite direction that you want them to, unless you are using that information to your advantage. And
you can try to get predictive. Say, hey, could Cooper Kupp be on the move? I kind of thought the same thing. I was going to ask that question. Hey, could Cooper Kupp be on the move? That'd be a big thing. So that's where I almost had Jordan Whittington on this list.
Yeah,
but Cooper Kupp, trading or cutting him only saves them $7 million, and they've got $50 million in 2025 cap money. So I don't think Matt Stafford would love it if you traded his BFF off of the team. But those are the kind of guys, hey, could this guy get moved? And if so, does it create an opportunity for someone behind him? Not in Cleveland, because that situation sucks. But it's going to create an opportunity for the guys with the Raiders. Someone's going to, get the chance to step up. So have fun with it. And the bigger the move, I'll leave you on this. Final thing, I promise. We'll get you out of here. The final thing, the bigger the move, the more you should wait. Because the last thing you'd want to do is go out and trade 2 future firsts to go get a stud and then have that guy catch an ACL. You know what? If your league has a trade deadline and you want to go all in on the big splash move, via con Dios, go with God. But don't do that now, because that's how that comes back to bite you. Then you have a contending roster. You're missing 2 first-round picks for the next 2 years, and you're not getting to use that guy for the intent that you have him. So the bigger the move, the more you should wait to your deadline or till the playoffs get here. I want to make big trades for healthy guys that can help me win money. Because, again, I'm greedy.
100%. Randy using Latin to end this podcast was not something that was on my
On your
my
bingo sheet?
card. No,
It was not. Hey, listen, we have a guest next week. Very special guest. I will not tell you who, but it is a fellow bald brother. And we'll have a guest next week. Hopefully Jerry's back, and we'll do more Dynasty Warzone then. Dude, the chat tonight was lit. Thank you so much to everybody. I won't even attempt to offend anybody by not mentioning, because there's literally dozens of people, hundreds of thousands of people watch the podcast and listen to the podcast. But tonight was the most messages and likes in the chat we've had in a while. So thank you guys so much for all the love. We'll be back next week with a very, very special guest. It's not this guy, but let's have the Podfather take us out.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.